From that platform on down? What if you can pull? Can you reach the edge? My name is Bill Donovan. I work for the construction branch at the OSHA Training Institute. These are some of the questions we're going to try to answer today, because we're going to talk about how to calculate the fall distance from wearing such equipment as I got on now. Currently I got a full body harness, January 1st, 98. That's required when you wear a fall vest. With a shock absorbing lanyard attached to my rear dorsal D-ring. What happens when I attach the other end of this lanyard to an anchor point? What's the fall distance? Or why do I need to know? Everybody knows fall is the #1 killer on construction sites, falls from elevation. We hope this equipment will solve lots of those problems and protect most employees where guardrails and safety nets can't. Big component of wearing this equipment, since we're going to let you fall now and you wear a personal fall arrest system, now we're going to control how you fall, and more importantly, we're going to control how you stop. What do you mean by that? Is it the fall that kills you in an accident? It's that sudden stop that kills you. OSHA now has a sudden stop standard. You look at the monitor, what do you see? 502D16 is OSHA's sudden stop standard. It talks about the maximum arresting force on the body. This is what kills you. You stop too suddenly. All of a sudden, the force in the body is enough to break bones, and rupture internal organs, do major damage. This standard also includes provisions for when you rig this equipment, how far you can fall, what they call maximum free fall distance. That's the distance before any of this equipment starts to break away or before it starts to activate, as they call it when you have a shock absorber in the system. So how do we calculate that free fall distance? And why do we need to know it? When you look at the potential energy of a fall, remember back to the physics, or you look at something, the law of falling bodies. In this case, the falling body is going to be the human body. What's the weight of that body with tools and equipment? We look at the fall distance, or the height of the fall. Gravity's going to take it down, so let's measure that fall height. So that weight times that fall distance will give us a potential force. How we stop that force will give us a force either pounds or kilonewtons. So we got to look at that. So how do we calculate the fall height? In order to minimize the fall forces, one of the key components is trying to limit or shorten as much as possible that fall distance. This component's a lanyard. It attaches to the rear dorsal D-ring on a harness. The length of this lanyard will have a lot to determine the length of the fall, depending, of course, where you tie it off. I'm going to give you 3 situations. I'm going to tie it off above me, above my D-ring. I'll tie it off even with my D-ring. I'll tie it off below my D-ring. Let's take a look at what 502D16 is saying. Let's see how far a fall distance is. Our first situation, or A situation here, I'm going to tie off to an anchor point approximately 2 feet above my D-ring. How far is my fall now? Well, I have a 6-foot lanyard. Now, if I'm going to fall, I've already taken 2 feet out of the equation of this lanyard because it's 2 feet above the D-ring. So 6-foot lanyard minus that 2 feet above is a 4-foot free fall. It wasn't too hard. Let's look at the next situation. Let's look at the B example. Now I'm going to tie off to a point where it's even with my D-ring. So let's say I'm tying off here. Here's my D-ring. I'm at a column or something at the edge of the work surface, at the edge of the deck. I tie off even with my D-ring. Now what's my fall distance? Well, since the anchor point is even with the D-ring, I'm going to fall the length of the lanyard. In this case, 6-foot lanyard will equal a 6-foot free fall. Well, what happens if I have a situation where I can't tie off at even with my D-ring or above it? What if the only place on the deck, the only place to tie off is at the base of a column? Here's an example. Here's a column right here. say I have an anchoring device such as this that's designed to go on steel. I tie off to that and I attach it to a steel column. At the base of the column. Now my anchor point is approximately 4 feet. Here's my D-ring. The anchor point is 4 feet below. Now watch the fall distance. I get a first one on the person. When I fall, I'm going to fall till I catch up to that anchor point. That's 4 feet. And then I'm going to fall the length of the lanyard, 6 feet. 4 foot to catch up to the anchor point, 6 additional feet to catch up to fall the length of the lanyard. That's a 10-foot total free fall. You got to watch out now. Distances like that, we could be setting ourselves up for major trouble. Our standard, we go look at 502 D16, states maximum free fall distance is 6 feet. But remember, it's not the fall that kills you, it's the sudden stop. So now we got to understand, how do we keep that sudden stop from occurring? What do we look for these things? You can always refer back to the standards. Look at your Federal Register. Look at your Federal Register for subpart M of the preamble. It discusses how fall forces. Appendix C discusses how we understand how the equipment works. Look in subpart M. Preamble talks about things like what is restraint, what is fall arrest, what is fall positioning. If we can control this force on the fall by the height, let's look at what positioning is. Now we're going to keep the fall down below 2 feet. What's fall restraint? What does restraint mean? A judge issues a restraining order. What does that mean? You're prevented or restrained from doing whatever the judge ordered you not to do. If I'm going to put you in fall restraint, I'm going to prevent you from reaching the fall exposure. I'm going to put you on a leash so you can't reach the edge where the fall is. Where can we find out more about this stuff, restraint? A couple of places. A couple of letters of interpretation from our OSHA system, either CD-ROM or on the OSHA Internet. Check out Webster's Dictionary. They define what restraint is. Look at your fall arrest systems manual from the 311 class. We've covered restraint topics and how to measure fall distance in there. Let's look at situations now where it's like, we understand if I'm at the edge, we can measure our fall distance vertically. What if we're not tied off at the end? What if we're tied off behind us? Say on a cable that's between two columns. Maybe an anchor point that's in the concrete. Maybe a lifting eye or a picking loop or a hoist anchor or a swivel anchor that's cast into the concrete deck that's somehow behind us. Now we're tied off behind us trying to reach toward our fall area or a place where the fall exposure can occur. How far is the fall distance now? What you're looking at is a triangle. Basically, my height, my D-ring, height of my D-ring above the work surface is the A side of a right triangle. That anchor point that's in the deck is the B side of my triangle. That anchor point to the deck edge where the fall hazard could occur is the B side of a right triangle. We need to calculate C to figure out how much length we need to reach the edge. If we can't reach the edge, we're considered to be restrained from falling. Well, how do we calculate this? Let's go to the next slide and we'll see. Remember Pythagoras from high school? Pythagoras' theorem? The two smaller sides of a right triangle, when squared and added together, will equal the square of the longer side of the right triangle. It's the hypotenuse. In this situation, the two smaller sides are the A side, that's the height of the D-ring above the work surface of the deck. The B side, from the anchor point to the deck edge in this case. And we look at C side, will give us the length we need to get to that edge. In this example, we're going to look at we're going to say our D-ring's 4 feet above the work surface. Our anchor point is 5 feet back. What's C? Well, 4 squared equals 16. 5 squared equals 25. That's the A and the B squared. 16 plus 25 equals 41. That's what C squared is equal to. Well, what's the square root of 41? pull out your calculator, hit the button with the squiggle on the top, that'll tell you the square root of 41 is 6.4. What does that mean? I have a 6-foot lanyard in this situation, but in order for me to reach that edge where the fall exposure is, I need 6.4 feet to get there. In this case, I am restrained. So it's that base right there is my anchor point. I can't reach the edge here. I can't get there. I am restrained. I am positively prevented from reaching that fall exposure. Fall restraint is a big issue in construction, a big issue with fall protection. It solves lots of problems for lots of people. When you're prevented, positively prevented from reaching that edge, you've now reduced the forces, or the possible, or the potential forces of a fall greatly, almost down to zero. We've lowered them drastically because now we don't have a free fall. We fall at all to the same surface we're on. Maybe we'll skin a knee or bruise a knee as opposed to breaking legs or that traumatic impact syndrome by being restrained. The whole forces on the system as a whole are greatly reduced, and this helps us solve lots of problems. The whole goal here is we're trying to comply with 502D16 and that sudden stop requirement. Well, what if I can't be restrained from reaching the edge? What if I will fall? If we look at situations, you can calculate this, so you can figure if you can get past the edge, then you use the other area to figure out how much free fall you have. Catch up to where your lanyard is, you might fall 1 feet or 3 feet additional. Look to see what happens there to get your total free fall height. What if I'm positioned? Earlier I mentioned positioning as a method of fall protection. What does positioning mean? Positioning means that somehow you're going to tie into the worker's structure, you're going to work with your hands free, and in no time we have a free fall greater than 2 feet. So in positioning, we're going to control the force on the fall, or the force on the human body from a free fall, by reducing the free fall distance to a maximum of 2 feet. This here is a form hook. It's specifically designed to go attach into a Simon's form like this. It hooks into a Simon's form. If this form is properly erected and connected, we can now work connecting the rest of the forms or doing work with the concrete structure will attach to this. These two snap hooks are a 2-foot chain. We put to either hook, we attach them to our side D-rings for positioning. They're now tied into the structure. What's our maximum fall height here? Let's look at it. 1 foot on either side of the chain, so we can work a foot up, a foot above our anchor point. If we fell from here, we fall 1 foot to catch up with our hook, our anchor point there, another foot, the length of the chain. Maximum free fall, in this case, 2 feet. We've controlled the forces of a fall when using positioning equipment by controlling the fall height. Using positioning equipment, you're also required to meet the requirements of 502E, which covers positioning devices. But what happens if you can't work in a situation where you're restrained, you can't work in a positioning system such as this? What if you need free fall more than 2 feet because of the work you're doing? Very common, lots of things happen like this. Say I'm doing my work and I'm tied off to a horizontal lifeline, so I'm going to pull the length of my lanyard 6 feet. I'm tied off to another structure or an anchor point where I'm going to have free fall, just like we calculated in our first example, more than 2 feet here. I had free falls 2, 4, 6, 10 feet could happen. How do we control situations here? 502D16 talks about the maximum arresting force. This is the sudden stop that kills you. We should always try to control our free fall so it's no more than 6 feet. But the big thing to remember, it's not the fall that kills you, it's that sudden stop. So how do we get the forces down below that MAF force they talk about, that 1,800 pounds when you're wearing a harness? We look at the different equipment. We look at how we stop now. What's stopping us? If you fell out of a 10-story building and you landed on concrete, we look for a deceleration device. We're looking for how are you going to stop that fall? Suddenly? Very suddenly on concrete. Are you going to slowly or gently decelerate that fall? If you fell 100 feet or 50 feet or whatever and landed on concrete, if that's flat, concrete's not going to give much. The human body's 70% water. That's what's giving. Well, how come in Hollywood, when stunt people do that fadeaway, that jump shot from the building, they go into the blue screen, they land on an air pillow, how come they're not hitting? How come they're not getting, why don't they have a split? Well, they're not landing on concrete, because we said they're landing on an air pillow. They fall about, how many feet? 50 feet. All of a sudden, boom, they hit the air pillow. The air pillow absorbs them. So they decelerate that fall of falling on the air pillow. Stopping distance of concrete is very small. Stopping distance of an air pillow is very great. It might not be too... We probably won't be able to put air pillows around construction jobs. We have to look for something else. Some people wonder, like, what about bungee jumpers? How come bungee jumpers don't hit the ground? Look at our different lanyard types. This is not what you see a bungee jumper wear. This is steel cable. It would be very traumatic if a bungee jumper jumped wearing a steel cable. A bungee jumper is going to have some elastic device that's going to put stretch into the system to absorb the shock. When the person jumps off the bridge tied to the bungee, they fall the length of the cord, just like the actor does, that stunt player. They fall the length. Instead of bringing an air pillow, the end of the cord, it stretches. That stretch is what absorbs the shock. How much stretch is in this steel cable? Not much. A little bit more stretch is in this nylon rope. That's not enough stretch to absorb the impact of that fall if we could fall 6 feet or so. What do we got to do now? How do we put stretch into this? Perhaps we get a device like this. It's called a deceleration device or shock absorber commonly. Try that into my system. As I fall to the end of this lanyard, all of a sudden this device is going to start to pull apart. It's going to read a certain amount of force with this material, this nylon, tears apart. It's sacrificed to absorb our shock, absorb the force in our fall. This decelerates us, so we don't have a sudden impact. The lanyard I have on, this yellow one here, works similar to that. It's got an inner, it's got the outer yellow nylon, and it's got an inner nylon sheath. This inner component is loosely woven. As you fall, as I was to fall and I fell the length of this lanyard, this inner piece, as it reached the end of this, that 6-foot fall, it would start to tighten up and stretch. That puts my deceleration in. That gives me my stretch. That slows me down. That brings my impact force down below at 1,800 pounds. Other devices such as this type works similar. In this black pack, you see there's a bunch of nylon web that's rolled together. As it falls to the end of the lanyard, this starts to rip apart. That gives us our deceleration. We sacrifice this part of web, that tearing action. I can't tear this. You need force to tear this. It's significant enough to rip this. That force slows down our fall and keeps the force from going into our bodies by tearing this web. Similar situations where it's landed like this, the stitches pop. It's called a rip stitch lanyard. It's stitched together. A certain amount of force needed to pop the stitches. As we fall, as opposed to us taking those pops, well, that force, the stitches give out, and the lanyard gets longer. That's our stretch. That's our shock absorber. To sum up and review, what are we looking for here? What are we trying to determine? We need to understand how far the fall distance is in a free fall situation, because that fall height will go into determining how much force is on the body. We want to be in compliance with 502D16, because it's that sudden stop that kills us. Let's stop that fall as gently as possible. Most desirable choice, be restrained from fall. If we're restrained, we can't reach the edge. Therefore, we're not exposed to falls. Lessen the fall distance as much as possible, such as positioning. Less than 2 feet of fall, we've controlled our force by limiting the fall height. You can't do either of those. If you're going to have a fall more than 2 feet, somehow you need to get a deceleration device in the system. Look for these black packs. Sometimes they're a yellow pack. You might have a retractable lifeline that has a built-in deceleration device in that, like a skid brake that slows the fall down. If we can't shorten the fall height, we must slow the fall down with either a shock absorber or similar type of deceleration device. We must have that in the system. It's important for you to understand that we need to measure these fall heights to ensure that we're in compliance with 502D16. See if they're restrained, see if they're positioned. If there's free fall, do we have a shock absorber in the system to make sure we don't go over that maximum resting force? If we do all this, hopefully we can lessen the number of deaths on construction caused by falls from elevation. Thank you.